Okay. Yeah, I mean, just pointing out one, another one of the reasons, clear reasons why. I mean, as you pointed out, I mean, I'm a complete nobody. Literally, nobody knows me. Literally, yeah. Barry Trower, Ian. I've spoke to all of them. Barry Trower, Ian Crane.
And what kind of response have you had, Paul?
Well, nobody knows anything about it. Yeah, it seems to me, I've got in touch with these people who are, acknowledged experts online and this, that, and the other.
So-called.
Yeah, and it seems to me that it's me that's the expert. Yeah. I've been involved with this for a total of 26 years.
I've only spoken to Mark Steele on a personal level. Have you had any contact with Mark?
Not yet. He has told. I have spoke to him about the subliminal stuff, the banned stuff, the triggered events, and the various other, mutations of reality that have been done to me. And he has confirmed to me that he has got evidence, whistleblower evidence, of this being done. And that's what I've been looking for quite a while. Yeah.
I'm a bit of a networker, as I mentioned to you, Paul. I'm a bit of a networker. I'm a bit of a connector, also, not any kind of major level, but I just know a lot of people, and it seems to be that I've made some good connections with people who've been able to help each other quite nicely. So, with regards to all these different people, as I say, so-called experts and all the rest of it, and I think perhaps it might be a case of, because this stuff is so, let's just say, outlandish, then if you want to call it, if you want to put it like that, they are disinclined then, if you like, to kind of talk about it, because it can be used to discredit people, I guess, because it is kind of so, outlandish, as we say.
It's so it's the stuff they're doing is literally so outlandish.
Yeah.
Nobody believes it can be done.
This is it. Yeah.
That is how, this is how they're sort of getting away with it.
Oh, it's all sci-fi. They've all done it by design. They put it all out in the films and the TV and the Black Mirrors, because sci-fi.
I don't get into all this lizard stuff and all this. I just deal with facts. What I know to be facts.
Yeah.
What I've eyewitnessed over 21 years. I don't take actually virtually no material from anyone whatsoever. Yeah, I'm talking pretty much entirely a complete empirical experience of my involvement with these people over 21 years.
Yeah,
it's virtually all entirely my own experiences, my interpretation and analysis of them. And I think I've got it. I think I've got it mapped down really to the nailed down on the button, 110%. Literally, I'm sitting on the development of Agenda 21 spying over the last 30 years in the UK. Yeah, and the fact that the UK government is fully invested in Agenda 21 life destruction kind of programs on people, and also the fact that the general scenario in the sort of employment market and the general lifestyle of UK people and so on is an Agenda 21 thing. This is how they're doing it. That they are eroding people's living standards. They are making sure people go through their lives for nothing. As I mentioned, the Cengiz brothers' manipulation of property values, right, was artificial and was deliberately aimed at raising property values so high that most people can't afford one. Yeah, and things like that. And that's another Agenda 21 directive. Yeah, again, lower orders not to own property.
Ownership.
Or this, yeah, and that was done deliberately, yeah. And as I say, I lost out because I own property and it got stolen. So my view on that is I want it back, yeah, and that is part of my case against Eve Carla William, who admitted doing it in 2006. Now I know this. I know it operates on a tyrannical level. I watched him during that project manipulate police and judiciary and various other entities, We've already seen that he managed to get me declared dead in the Daily Mail and things like that. So they got massive control over media, you know, internet, media, police, judiciary, and so on. It is a kind of tyrannical control scene you've got going on here. Yeah, nobody will sort of go against them. Nobody will touch them. Nobody will say anything. Nobody will arrest them. They're sort of free to do what they like, you know, to anybody. So it's a tyrannical thing, you know. That's what tyranny is. It's where somebody just, you know, a ruler or you know, a head of state or whatever, just does what the hell they like, and nobody can stop them. Yeah. So if you're a victim of one of these people, then you're in a situation where you know, you've got to remove yourself from the jurisdiction of those people somehow. Yeah. That's why I'm looking for an international criminal court to pursue the case. You know, 21 years is a hell of a long time to get victimized for, and get your life ruined, and, you know, be literally have it dismantled in every conceivable way. You know, so as far as I can see, what you know, what the UK is dealing with is a kind of silent tyranny, because I mean the Stasi spies are not publicised at all. Nobody knows about them. Yeah, I'm the first person that's come out and said, you know, there's a whole bunch of Stasi spies operating in London. Nobody else has said this. Catherine Horton, Robert Duncan, Ian Crane, or Brian Trower. None of them have said anything like that. Yeah, they don't know these people. The only little nod I got was from Barry Trower, who recognised the subliminal messaging aspect of the abuse.
Oh, okay, that's interesting.
He acknowledged that the subliminal messaging stuff, but he
was aware of that then through his own personal knowledge of working.
I've asked all of them for corroboration on the weaponized algorithm surveillance abuse, technology abuse.
And Barry, you're saying then, is the only one who's actually acknowledged and said, yeah, that's his stuff that he's aware of.
Yeah, but again, other people have said this as well, you know. However, it's not acknowledged by the NHS, etc. Yeah, and it is, I think it's become pretty much common practice for those entities to be used in order to discredit the testimony of the victims. Yeah. Now, yeah. I'm perfectly sane. I think it will be pretty clear to any reasonably intelligent person that I'm perfectly sane.
Oh, 100%, brother, 100%.
And I have not got schizophrenia. However, I'm currently misdiagnosed with it. I'm currently permanently banned from driving, again, resulting in a loss of the job I had 3 years ago at the time, etc. It was a deliberately engineered. It was done deliberately. It resulted after a 20-month stint of approximately 10,000 subliminal messages on a motorway. Yeah, that's what brought that about. Yeah, I was attacked 10,000 times on a motorway. You know, and I've had people saying to me, you know, oh, you're a very sick man, and this, that, and the other. You know, I've literally had people saying that. And I've said, you know, no, you know, that is not the case. You know, you have literally got a situation here where you have somebody who's very perceptive as to what is really being done. Yeah, you have not got a sick man or anybody who's mentally ill. You've got somebody who's very perceptive as to what is actually being done in their lives to them. Yeah, and that is technological gaslighting using very, very extreme technology. Yeah.
Well, other people, Paul, would say, "Oh my God, I'm losing my mind," because they, you know, that's not, and that is what the goal of these techniques is essentially, is for people to go, "Oh my God, I'm losing the plot. What's going on?" You know.
Yeah, that's the goal. The goal is multiple goals. One is to discredit the testimony, obviously, because they, you know, you're talking about suing the UK. You know, I'm looking to sue Eve Carlo William for 10 billion damages for what he's done to my life. Because he has literally wiped it all out. Yeah, being involved with him, the subsequent abuse and victimization and the gaslighting. We're looking at about 40,000 instances of weaponized algorithm surveillance technology abuse, and that's not counting the sort of roughly, I don't know, thousands of web, text, email, phone, and flyers through the door. There's quite a lot of those as well. And I had
a digital comrade, Kaylee, who only very recently just received a shed load of subscriptions. I know this is just a very minor little aside, but just received a shed load of subscriptions to, she's dealing with problems, essentially, things online where they post and stuff. So yeah, it's just so many different angles that they can, do these attacks from.
Yeah, they can. I've documented some of the stuff they can do, but not all of it. There's a lot more.
Yeah.
I've only actually put a kind of tiny fraction of what's been done to me. Yeah, I've got a snapshot of the last 2 months, roughly. Subliminal messages, triggered events, mainly van messages, but some are triggered events of meeting people in the streets. And I think I'm probably the first person in the world to tell, anybody who wants to know, that the UK government can decide who you meet in the streets using this technology. Yeah, they do it by after analysing your behaviour and patterns of movement and various other aspects of your life. They can predict what you're going to do next, and they can trigger an event in what follows in order to manipulate, intimidate, influence, or psychologically abuse you. They can trigger you to meet a certain person or type of person in order to, again, manipulate or psychologically abuse. Yeah, they can also use hologram voice projection to put words into that person's mouth to say to you. Yeah, and I have had all this stuff in the last few years.
I'm not going to get into it in any depth right now, but I have actually experienced that firsthand. So, and people go, "Yeah, you're off your head. You're crazy." And that's, oh yeah, cool, fine. Think what you will, but you will not take my firsthand experience away from me. And I experienced it firsthand. And the other person is like, "No, I didn't say that. This didn't happen." I'm like, "It did. I remember it." And how very strange that these people are able to be used, manipulated, etc., through these technologies and not even be aware of it themselves.
That's right. This is the objective of it is generally is that they can manipulate a victim or individual without their knowledge, and they are so heavily manipulated that they can be completely controlled on a long-term basis. They can do it over many years to the victim, and the victim is sort of led or steered into a set of circumstances that are predetermined by these people. Yeah, they use complex algorithms, mathematical algorithms like the John Nash equilibrium theory or others similar. They use nanotech and smart dust. They're using satellite surveillance and artificial intelligence and 5G technologies and various other technologies to do this on the victim. So you're talking about if you are sort of targeted or victimized by these people, you're in a sci-fi version of the Truman Show movie, which is exactly what I've said. Yeah.
Exactly what the film was about. They weren't messing around with it. It's all this stuff, truth in plain sight, predictive program, and they rub it in our faces. Simple as that.
So, this is what we're talking about here is a sort of an extension of the zersetsung cases, the East German case. You've got the same thing, yeah, but it's highly evolved. It's now using extreme, weaponized technology to do, perform the atrocities, and you have got a serious problem if you are a victim, yeah, because you have not got a life. You are being controlled or manipulated into a desired situation by these people. You are in the Truman Show. The reason for that is that they, it could be many reasons, but typically it will be because they don't think you contributed to society, or you provided enough value, or various other aspects of your personality that they don't like. Yeah. So he's talking about a kind of tyrannical, sort of judgmental victimization program or destruction program that these people are running on victims. Yeah. And I don't know how many victims there are, but what I do know is that they haven't built all this technology just to do it to me.
Yeah, exactly.
So therefore, it is very relevant for anybody else in the UK to know about this. Yeah, it is backed by the UK government. The UK government talk to people in riddles, cryptic messages. I've highlighted some of them. One from David Cameron, one from Boris Johnson, etc., etc. They are there for people to read, watch and interpret. Essentially, what the politicians are completely full of garbage. Yeah, they are leading everybody up the garden path.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and that you have got a situation. You are essentially now, for the last couple of decades or so, the UK public is in a war zone. Right, they're in a war that they don't know exists. Yeah. It is heavily propagandized. It is Orwellian. It is heavily. It is essentially, as I say, a new world order, Agenda 21 kind of thing. Victims may not know they are victims. Yeah, because such is the extreme kind of the unusualness of the abuse of the victim, and the length of time it's done over. It is done incrementally. Yeah, it's done incrementally to the victims. It's sort of planned out. The victim's life is planned out, over quite a number of years, and this is what they're doing. And this is what I've taken out from my involvement with spies, in the UK. The only option for the victim, if they know about it, is to try and get a lawyer, because, as I've said before, the government is destroying their lives. They're literally destroying the potential of the victim. They're destroying they're usually destroying the victim's income, assets, and so on. The objective is to ensure the victim fades out of society with zilch. Yeah, it is a kind of silent Holocaust, or it is a financial income asset based takedown of the victim. Yeah, that's what people are doing. That's what was done to me in the first place, right? Initially, it was noted that they took my property from me and so on, and life savings and this, that, and the other, and I was manipulated out of society completely. At the end of that, and it's carried on. Essentially they're coming back to do it again. So this is why I'm looking for a lawyer to try and get help about it. Also, obviously, to get the abuse stopped. I don't know if you get an injunction or whatever, but the people doing it, he's Carlo William and his other spy associates, Charles Gabriel, who phoned me in 2012, and various other members of the network, are victimizing me on a major level. They're doing it in a way that nobody else can see. So if I say
they don't strike me as the people who would abide by injunctions either, though, given the nature of what we're discussing. Yeah.
No, this I don't know what
I understand what you're saying. Yeah, what recourse do we try and reach out for or aim for?
What else can you do?
I understand.
You are being victimized by typically very wealthy people for essentially to keep their own crime secret. That they know a lot about them, as in the Brian Harvey case, etc.
Yeah.
They are victimizing people to keep them quiet, or keep it all under wraps, etc. So you've got huge corruption and criminality in the UK. Massive. Not a little bit. It's massive.
Oh, it's corrupt to the core, as we know.
No, as I say, the only option. The way I look at it now, from what I've been involved in over the last 21 years, the fact that I have been manipulated very heavily, every aspect of my life has been manipulated, pretty much on a weekly basis for 21 years. Yeah, so I've been very, very heavily targeted by these people. It's obviously got a lot to do with what I know about them. The fact that David Levine passed me that book on Robert Maxwell in 2001 as a tacit indication of what I've become involved in, shows that essentially they're telling the victim, or telling the story to the victim as they go along and so on, and that was their way of telling me I've sort of become involved with the network behind the Maxwell incident, etc. Yeah, and then we follow on. We go on to the my certain knowledge of the Litvinenko assassination. The knowledge that these people know and manipulate everything in the UK in a kind of blanket high-tech control grid, and literally nothing goes on without them knowing about it. So I would say probably most of the murders have been done by this network, the same network. Yeah. So you've got massive corruption. You've got a murderous, criminal, tyrannical network running the country, not, as people think, 600 people in Parliament. Yeah. So when you kind of know all this stuff, and you've been involved with them for 21 years, it changes your view a bit. You sort of you don't get into politics because it's pointless, etc. You don't get. You start to think. Also, the situation to be manipulated into is so extraordinarily bad that you've got to figure out a way of fixing the appalling collateral damage done to your life because you got involved with these people. A legal case might take 5 years or whatever. It could take a while to bring a case against the people involved. They know this. Yeah. In the meantime, they could manipulate you into a sort of park bench scenario or whatever. Yeah. So you've got serious problems. Yeah. It's virtually impossible to try and get a career or fix the damage that's done. When they've done it to you, it's irreversible. And again, this is documented in the zersetsung case files. Yeah. The objective was to inflict irreversible damage on the victims, yeah, so that they, were in a situation where they were ruined and could not fix it. So, as I say, it's a very unusual situation. I'm on LinkedIn. I've got a robust profile, built it up, okay and stuff. But none of those people on LinkedIn know my, what I've been involved in. I don't put it on there. It's considered negative and things like that. It's considered you're moaning or, you're all sorts of, the people there, a lot of these people are, multi-millionaire businessmen and this and other. They haven't been involved in this kind of stuff. They've had normal lives. They haven't been involved in this. They wouldn't think that it would ever be able to affect them. They don't sort of think that anything like this could be done. I mean, in the case, I've spoke to both detectives in the Litvinenko investigation, and I've told them both that investigation is being run by the perpetrators. And Detective Maskell said to me, I told him that I knew that the people down there are manipulating police and judiciary, etc., and they're using high-tech control mechanisms, weaponized algorithms, surveillance technology, to trigger events in the various people's lives around it. I said it's quite probable that Detective Maskell would not, like me when I was there, not be able to trust any event in his day. Yeah, literally. And I've also said that to DCI Gosling. Now they take no notice of me now, and said, no, Detective Maskell said, no. Nobody's doing that to me. I know, I know what I'm doing, and so on and so forth. Well, he doesn't know the intricate nature and the manipulative ways that these people operate. It is very insidious the way these people operate.
Are you familiar with, you'll be familiar with the name, I'm sure, Ian Huntley?
Mm.
Yeah. Did you read about the Soham scapegoat, to the guy who broke it all down? And
No.
oh, good Lord, it blew my mind, that one did. And only quite recently that was, Paul. You know, the word Ian Huntley, instant association, you know, child killer, wrong and all the rest of it, and that was the association that I had. And it's called the Soham Scapegoats and Miscarriage of Justice. If you put that into Google and read it, and that guy was a patsy. He was used. Those two young girls, and a terrible, terrible, terrible case. But it does seem that those girls were killed by American military. They were found a stone's throw from this American base, literally the other side of the fence. And it's a good read. It takes a good, you know, an hour and maybe 90 minutes reading it all. But when you read it, oh, good Lord, yeah. And yeah, it was the whole thing of they didn't want it brought out in the public eye that, you know, potentially American military had committed these atrocious crimes on, you know, British soil and all the rest of it. So yeah, he was essentially the scapegoat for, and his female accomplice, I forget her name. But yeah, I'll put a link in the description box. So when you read it all and you break it down, how they kind of orchestrated the whole situation, just when things are operating from the top level, you know, you're up against it big time. Yeah,
what you're talking about here is an extremely corrupt high-level network. It is, you know, I've highlighted some of the people involved. It is a sort of overarching control network. You know, these people are operating tacitly together, and that, as I say, if I get the phone records from my phone at the time, that will be, you know, proved irrefutably that they were. It will show exactly who some of them were and how they did it. You know, how I was manipulated by these people, and they are, you know, they're operating on a tyrannical level. You know, and it is a global thing. You know, there were USA businessmen, Russian businessmen, German bankers, German oil executives, Egyptian, various nationalities involved in this. It is a highly secretive network, yeah, of people operating tacitly together. It's not publicised and it's not recognised as actually existing. Yeah,
best way to operate, isn't it, for these guys?
And this is you know, a problem. They are manipulating police, judiciary, literally everything. Yeah. So you've got to kind of, you know, when you've got sort of knowledge of this, you sort of walking around knowing that these people are manipulating your life. You know, it's very, you know, unusual situation. You know, nobody else knows it's being done. You know, and that's the way they do it. So, you know, you essentially, in my case, I'm trying to collect evidence. Just evidence, not, you know, not hearsay or anything like that. Just the evidence.
I will be completely honest with you right now, Paul. The way I see things, as a whole, as a totality of the situation, with regards to in our immediate situation right now, you are attempting to, you know, obtain legal representation and all that. I feel that we're very up against it. I feel we're going to very much struggle with regards to that. But what I do feel that this conversation, at the very least, will do, will put this information out there for more people who, I hope anyway, who have been victims such as yourself, unawares, and to be able to hang on a minute, you know, this has happened to me, and I think it's only by getting more and more people together in this unity. This, as I said, it seems very disjointed. There's so many different people working alone or within their own kind of little field, and it just seems to be that we, at this moment in time anyway, the main aim for me is just unity and awareness, is getting these people together to kind of, because I don't know, it just, as we know, it's been going on for a very, very long time. It's generational, it's families, and, you know, you're talking about these individual spies operating above and beyond any kind of jurisdiction. Right. This kind of stuff is handed down generationally, and all the rest of it. And as I said, I can't quite remember the full details, but I know I saw something where somebody went to a solicitor's with regards to this kind of targeted stuff, and they were told, the solicitor said, "Oh, no, we've been told as a firm we're not to."
Well,
we're not even entertain any of this stuff. So, you know,
the stuff I've been involved in, It's such high level kind of stuff. You know, this is not Mickey Mouse or kind of Freemason or any. This is high level. It is known. I know that E. Carlo William works or is connected to the royal family. So you've got, you know, you're looking at the only possible way you can get anywhere with this is International Criminal Court for war crimes, just like the original zersetsung cases. Yeah. But you know, the only person I'm pursuing in the main is E. Carlo William. That's it really. He's got a large network, and some of those are involved, and so on. But the case revolves around this man and his victimisation of me for 21 years. And I would be looking to try and get help from an international criminal court lawyer for war crimes, as I say, crimes against humanity, zersetsung, attempted murder, and state terrorism. That's the sort of 5 essential core elements. But there are other things like property fraud, theft, coercion, manipulation, intimidation, victimisation, and conspiracy. Yeah. So there's quite a lot of charges, and I expect to be able to prove some of them, at least some of them. Yeah. My eyewitness testimony is extremely valid. That's why I've been wrongly diagnosed with schizophrenia. Yeah. He knows this. Yeah. So you've got somebody, you know, I know he did that murder. He is, you know, the situation I'm in is he's never going to leave me alone unless I get legal help with this. Yeah. Bring it out into the open and literally get proper legal help from an international criminal court lawyer. That's the extent of my the problem I've got with this, with this network and the people behind it. They have victimised me for 21 years. There was never any reason for me to get involved with them. What I know, as you know, subsequently as a victim, is entirely their own doing. You know, I would never know all this stuff if they hadn't started in in '97 with all this manipulation and victimisation and so on. You know, so it's a case of as I say, I'm looking for international criminal court. That's the only way it would be able to be done. Simple as that. You know, I've been victimised on a major level.
Yeah, what I will be doing with this video, Paul, as I said, is when it gets released and premiered, I will be posting the link on all the different kind of sites and kind of the targeted individual groups and all the rest of it. And, as I said, I've got some good friends and some people who are all kind of, it's the whole 3 degrees of separation and all that kind of stuff. We're all connected through, 1 or 2 different people. So I am kind of fervently hoping that, this information is going to resonate with some people, and there will be people out there who are either already working on this kind of stuff, have got other things going on, or just have the capability to be able to do something for us or with us. And
as a result of my involvement with this, my life's turned into something like Orwell meets The Truman Show meets Brave New World and all the rest of it.
On cocaine and steroids. Yeah.
It's not, as I say, it's not just espionage. It is state terrorism. That's what I'm being subjected to. They're doing it in a different way. I'm not famous like Julian Assange or Brian Harvey or any of those people, but I have got expansive knowledge, probably more so than any of those 2 individuals, believe it or not. And this is the fundamental reason I'm still being victimised. I got exposed to so much of their activities and so much knowledge of the people involved directly and personally. I sat down to dinner with many of them for 2.5 years or so, and I've got massive knowledge of their activities. People have said to me, "Oh, just carry on with their life and so on," but unless I get restitution, the damages that have been done to me over 21 years, that's not going to be able to be possible with the best will in the world. Entrepreneurial mind or whatever. It is extremely difficult when people are literally driving you into poverty and homelessness deliberately. It's a very unusual situation. You've got a situation where as a result of you being involved with these people, your life is being completely destroyed and ruined on every level, you know, personal, family, career, obviously, and everything, literally. And there's actually very little difference between my intellect and theirs. You know, the difference is I'm a victim and they're not. So you know, it is a very unusual, you know, situation. Or, you know, I worked into that, into, you know, being involved with them. I've been subsequently victimised for another 12 years, and so we haven't even done the last 6 years yet, and that's pretty much of an eye opener. You know, 10,000.
Want to do that now, Paul?
We can do that now if you want. Yeah, yeah.
I'm free all evening, brother. Yeah, I want to keep this locked open for you. So by all means, let's just get it all out there now. Let's just do it. Yeah.
Well, can we just take 5 minutes?
Of course you can. Yeah, let's do that. Yeah, let's do that.
Right.
Tell you what, look, it's 21:27 now. I'm going to go and have a little stretch because my back's in the seat. But yeah, let's have a little 5 minutes and we'll get back to it.
I mean, I'm upbeat. You know, I feel upbeat about this, but essentially, you know, I'm on my last legs here. You know.
Yeah. I hear you, brother. I hear you. Yeah.
And I'm looking to try and get help very quickly from a lawyer, because although it's, you know, you won't see me in the papers or anything like that, my situation is every bit as bad as the perceived situations of Assange and various other people. You know,
this is it, brother. This is it. And if I can help to facilitate that, then that would be absolutely amazing.
I'm a kind of secret victim. You know, one that they've kept well under wraps.
Exactly.
Largely because I've probably got more knowledge than anybody else. Yeah. That's you know, largely the reason. So you know, I'm looking to try and get help ASAP. I am in a dire situation here. You know, it's dire. The driving license got stopped permanently. You know, wrongly. You really can't make up what these people have done to me over 21 years. You cannot make it up. You know, I had a film producer interested in the story. You know, he was interested in the story of what got done to me over 21 years and how I discovered the use of the weaponized algorithm surveillance technology. Because, as I say, as far as I'm aware, I'm still the first person in the world to tell people that the UK government, at least, and probably the USA and various other governments, can decide who you meet in the street. And I don't think a lot of people saw that one coming.
No, I bet they didn't. No. All right, then, brother. Let's take a little break and then we'll get into it and we'll get the last little section covered nice and deeply.
Yeah. All right. See you in a minute. All right. Ready?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. So we've gone into quite a bit of detail there, and I think it'd be nice then if you can kind of just get into, and I'm sure we'll come back and revisit, you know, some of this, and more things will come up in the future. But let's just get into kind of, you know, this last kind of period that you want to kind of break down for the listeners.
Okay, so you know, the problem I've had with all this is all this happened to me quite late in life. You know, I was about 39 when it started. I was 49 when I was declared dead in the Daily Mail, and as I say, not a few years after that, became, as a result of the 10 years gang stalking and the sort of shock of it, I became a recluse for 4.5 years roughly, in a similar way to, I think, Brian Harvey and so on, you know. And then something else happened after that. I mean, you know, I'm now sort of well into my 50s, you know, as a, you know, still trying to come to grips with sort of what was done to me, you know. Very extraordinary situation to be gang stalked by a lot of sort of people pretending to be a friend, etc., when in reality they are manipulating you into sort of obscurity, you know, and that's what was done at the time, as we've spoken about. And the sort of discovery that, in fact, there is a, you know, large spy network backed by the UK government in London, and they are using, sort of extreme technology throughout the UK. As I've discovered in later years, it is an extraordinary situation, and it's stuff that people just don't know about. People just don't know. They wouldn't think, for instance, that the government installed technology, maybe 30 years ago, that can decide who a victim meets in the street, or, cause staged vehicle accidents, or send them subliminal messages on vans, or trigger various other mutations of their reality in their daily lives. It's not the kind of stuff that you vote governments into power for, is it? Yeah.
No, certainly not. Certainly not.
You vote them into power to sort of look after your interests. Yeah?
Yes, indeed.
Not to subjugate you, or to put in place procedures to exterminate you if they don't think you're very good or up to much, or various other criteria. Yeah. So this is a very unusual revelation, isn't it? The fact that they are using this tech, and there is a large spy network with overarching control, a fanatical kind of level of a serious level of fanaticism, etc., and so on. And this is, you can see this actually evident if you go on LinkedIn. I mean, I'm on LinkedIn. I've got a robust profile, but none of them know my back. What's happened to me over the 21 years, and they don't know my situation at the moment either. But if you go on there, most of those people on there are, very confident, and you can achieve anything in life if you want to, etc., etc. Now, largely that's probably true, but as with many sort of idioms, there is there are exceptions, and this is one of them. When you have got a government with very, very capable technology and spying powers and various other methods of manipulation of your life, and if they have decided that they are going to ruin your life or destroy you, etc., that is what's going to happen, regardless of your perception that you can sort of do anything and blah blah blah. Yeah. And so that's the exception that that people don't realize is there, probably. So if we come back to what's happened over the last 6 years. I mean, after I was declared dead, there was a couple of years when I was still contacted by some of the people down there. Yeah, they were ringing me just to say hello and just to see how I was and things like that. So I found it a bit surprising. And it was again a bizarre situation. I'd been left homeless, and literally defrauded out of everything, and so on. And I was, the people that did it were ringing me to see how I was. Yeah, so a pretty bizarre situation. Yeah.
Yeah.
That no acknowledgement at all that anything untoward had gone on. Yeah. And this again sort of shows the fanaticism of these people for things to appear natural and normal and part of the proceedings and so on. There's just no admission of anything. Yeah. No recognition that anything is, untoward or has been done wrong or anything like that. So I had a couple of years of that, and then I became a bit reclusive because, I was in shock. I got post-traumatic stress disorder and depression and things like that. And I was, in a pretty bad way, after having it done to me, very difficult to cope with. What sort of 1 minute I'm hobnobbing with multimillionaires and billionaires and all the rest of it. The next minute I've been removed from society totally. So it's very unusual. And then I started to get some of the subliminal messages, which, sort of recognised as being there when I was involved with them. And I started to get a couple of those. And one of them was when I was doing a Open University course for in computer tech and stuff like that. And One subliminal message I had was from somebody in Sweden. And the message was that there was a bit of, I'm essentially struggling, very badly. I'm 50 odd years old, sort of life's disappeared. And it's like the message was something along the lines of, oh, they've got a degree so they can earn some money and stuff like this. And this is the first sort of reference I got from these people about earning money. Yeah. And it seems to become a fairly prevalent reference in the subsequent subliminal messaging that I've had. Yeah, they're actually sort of fanatical about the level of people's value to society and what they are earning and so on and so forth. And given that I'd sort of worked for them for free for 10 years. It was a bit bizarre, it was a bizarre situation. I'd literally gone 10 years at that time, 97 to 2007, without earning a penny, literally nothing. Sort of lived hand to mouth for the 10 years, pretty much. No national insurance, no pension, no, zilch. So, zero career whatsoever. Yeah.
So what was your income there, Paul? Was this through the drugs and stuff, or?
It was just day to day, because everything was controlled. Yeah.
Yeah.
The whole thing was controlled. The drugs were supplied by a Montenegrin called Zak, who was one of the 3 Montenegrin spies. Yeah, and he was bringing them and stuff, and it was all completely controlled. Yeah, he sort of took over my life. As I say, they were pretending to be friends, but in fact were essentially ruining my life. So they were, everything was controlled. The Zak was bringing the drugs and so on, and I was pretending to be a drug dealer. That's essentially what I was doing when I was involved with them. I was pretending to be a drug dealer. That was it. So it was very bizarre, why, sort of thinking, why has this guy got me pretending to be a drug dealer and stuff like that, It's no wonder, looking at it all, it's no wonder I get subliminal messages along the lines of moron and things like that. These people literally think I'm a moron, which is, as I say, I don't entirely disagree with. Right.
Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. Yeah,
I made a serious mistake.
Hindsight's a wonderful thing, brother. Eh?
Staying involved with them for so long, essentially ruining my, entire career, life, the lot. Yeah. So I don't entirely disagree with that, but that may well be the case. But there's nothing wrong with my intellect.
Yes, clearly.
Yeah. And I'm certainly not mentally ill as such. Although I am probably going to be, psychologically sort of a bit damaged for the rest of the life.
Of course, naturally. These are two different things, though. There's two very distinct different things. Yeah.
So anyway, that was the first reference. I started getting little subliminal messages and stuff like that, and this just sort of shoehorn in the Litvinenko thing here. Yeah,
by all means.
Place in November, late 2006. Now, I've been involved with these people on a very personal level for a long time when that took place. I knew immediately exactly who had done that murder. Yeah, there was, to me, no other people that could have done it. Yeah, because such was the expansive control of these people over, literally everything in London. You have to remember, these people manipulated a large contract hit, or whatever you want to call it, on an individual. They manipulated all the activities of the criminals involved in that. Yeah, they stopped every single attempt, revolving around it. They stopped every single attempt to kill me. Right? None of them worked, obviously. Yeah. Now these are the top sort of gangsters and criminals in London who have got literally murdered quite a few people, yeah, but they never got me. Yeah, they tried very hard for 2.5 years. And so you're talking about a very, very high and extreme level of control and manipulative ability over large numbers of people here. Yeah, you're talking about a network that's got eyes literally everywhere. Yeah, that can sort of literally manipulate anybody at any level, in any way. Sort of mutations, reality, and all sorts of stuff. Yeah, technological street theatre, personal street theatre, manipulative contact, with between spies and the other, massive manipulation ability, literal, pretty much blanket control over 7 million people in London. Yeah. So when that murder took place, it was crystal clear to me that there was only, notwithstanding the fact that it took place at the Millennium, and I know Ali, the head of the Millennium at that time, to be in charge. Yeah, the connection. I know him to be a member of William's spy network. Yeah? I know them to be highly manipulative, with massive contacts with people in Russia. There was numerous Russian businessmen involved in my manipulation, or in and out of the proceedings and so on. Yeah, which prompted me to state that Luke Harding's book on Litvinenko is a pile of garbage. Yeah, it is a complete propaganda exercise, published typically to deflect the...
I'm not familiar with that publication, Paul, but are you essentially saying that the narrative that's being touted there is, as you say, just distraction and propaganda and nonsense, distracted from the reality of what's actually gone on?
Yeah, it's just propaganda.
Okay, yeah.
Two core elements are that of the book are that some people in Russia did it, etc., etc., and the other theme of it is that there's a massive war of the West, or war with the West from Russia.
Right.
That's not the case at all. There's massive connections with Russian people, Russian businessmen, wealthy businessmen, etc., etc., in this network, in William's network in London. Yeah, there's a very, very strong connection, and a number of connections with these people. Yeah, I met a few of them. I was, numerous times sat down at a tea table or cafe or whatever with some of them. One brought me some caviar. Various other sort of occasions when I witnessed a very strong camaraderie between William and these Russian people. They are clearly, on some level, operating in his network. Yeah, the spy network, Stasi network. Yeah, so there's a very strong, connection with Russian people with this network, and obviously by connection with the UK government. Just these people, I always go back to this. These people are working for the UK government. Yeah, there's no possibility that they could be working on this level without the full knowledge of the UK government. Yeah, not with the capability of the technology they're using. This is the UK government's Stasi spy network. Yeah,
the network behind the network, Paul.
Pardon? Yeah,
the network behind the network.
Yeah. So we've got here, I witnessed all this. I knew straight away that murder had been done by Eves, Carlo, William and Ali. Yeah, I knew immediately. There was no way it could have been done by anyone else. Of course, I didn't say anything. I was still in shock of what was done to me at the time. At that time, I hadn't yet been declared dead in the Daily Mail. That happened a few months later, in February of 2007. And I didn't say anything. I kept quiet. I didn't, I was still trying to deal with my situation, sort of being wiped out of society. So I just carried on, struggled with stuff I had to do here and this and the other. And And then I was getting, you know, the odd communication. William was still communicating with me. I'd started using computers and things, and I was getting communications by email and things like that, which was the sort of start of the, you know, subliminal messages and things like that. You know, the man was essentially still keeping tabs on me. Yeah. You know, he knew full well he'd left me homeless, defrauded me out of everything, and he was still keeping tabs on me to see how I'd sort of cope with it, or, you know, whatever, you know, just of interest or whatever. Yeah. And I was still being contacted. I was once sent a link to a website that looked like it was collecting, helping people, but was clearly there just to collect information and intel and stuff like that, you know. So I was sent a message, oh, this is my website. And that was literally what it was, just a kind of intel collecting site.
Intel gathering kind of setup, yeah.
Purporting to help people, but really there just to collect info and intel and all the rest of it, you know.
Which is the accusations, Paul, if I just a quick interjection, which is the accusations that are being, you know, chucked at certain people who are currently, you know, part of this kind of, I don't like the term, but the truther network and all this kind of stuff, and these kind of higher profile people who are, you know, doing their thing, and people are saying, no, it's all just intel gathering. That's all they're doing is gathering intel, and it's hard to know what's what on it. But go on, brother, how's you? Sorry.
Well, it's, you know, as I say, I started getting these, you know, communications and stuff like that. I kept quiet about it, but on one occasion in 2008, I did respond to one of these messages, yeah, or one of these communications. It was a communication from Yves Carlo William, and it was via the web. Can't remember exactly how it was at the moment, but it was a, you know, sort of web communication, email or web account or whatever, something like that. And I responded. It was to do with something to do in London or whatever, but it was something to do with Russians or Millennium Hotel or something like that. And I responded by saying the following lines. Just, you know, make sure they don't drink Millennium Hotel tea. Now, this was met with a kind of terse response. You know, it was apparent that that comment was not very welcome. Yeah, because what I was essentially saying was that I knew he did the murder. Yeah. And from that moment on, you know, I realised a little bit later that I knew then that I would be watched and manipulated for, you know, for the rest of my life, right? Simply because I literally, you know, had come out and said, you know, you've done that murder, yeah. And
not in as many words, but, you know, giving the old wink. I know. Yeah.
I've got, you know, the situation where I've sort of come out and said that, and it's kind of sealed my the rest of my life. I've been, you know, it has been the reason for the continued, you know, steadily increasing victimization. Yeah. Where, you know, my life's been dissected. It has been manipulated. I've been heavily abused, you know, ever since, and slowly, incrementally, it has carried on. So after 2008, you know, as I say, I was sort of getting at the time post-traumatic stress disorder because of the, you know, the staggering kind of scenario that I'd been involved in. You know, I'd realised that I'd gone through that whole 10 years with, you know, for no reason whatsoever. My entire life had been wiped out. I'd been removed from society in London altogether. You know, I was obviously, you know, looking at it, a social clearance, pretty much like all the others, yeah. You know, and social clearance seems to be the kind of theme of this network, yeah. People who they don't seem deemed to be socially acceptable, or people they don't deem to have, you know, run their life correctly, or and so on and so forth, you know. the traditional route of getting a degree and, you know, working through ranks and all the rest of it is what they like people to do. Yeah. I obviously, you know, because of what I got involved with, never got a chance to do that. Yeah. So this, and that's the theme. The social clearance theme seems to be quite prevalent with these people. Yeah, they are targeting people they believe to be kind of below them, not contributing to society and beneath them, and all the rest of it. You know, a kind of elitist kind of victimization thing. Yeah. So I got, you know, I became a recluse for a few years, and I got very badly depressed. I got post-traumatic stress disorder, and I became a recluse for about 4.5 years. I couldn't tell anybody here what I'd been involved in. It was impossible to describe. You know, it took me a number of years to be able to describe it as I am describing it now. You know, I couldn't have described it how, you know, going through it now. I could have done this. I could have done it 10 years ago. I wouldn't have known. I didn't know enough to actually be able to describe it. You know, it has now, however, been dissected properly and, you know, put into the right context and the right way of description. I think, you know, I think we've got a situation where, you know, I'm pretty much 110% on the button about everything. You know,
you need the context to be able to frame these kind of, you know, stories and situations and experiences, and without the context, it's hard to be able to frame it, isn't it?
Yeah, it's you know, it's essentially I'm in a situation. I've had my life taken over by a criminally insane psychopath for 21 years. You know, because if you look at the Litvinenko murder, it was a symbolic murder. Yeah, it was done in broad daylight in a public place. Yeah, now that was unnecessary. Well, obviously, you know, didn't need to be done in a public place, and it didn't need to be done in the broad daylight, etc., etc. It was done deliberately, symbolically. The people who did that are saying, sort of, we can do what we want.
This is it. This is what we can do. This is what we, and it's an overt show of strength and that kind of stuff, isn't it? Exactly.
Yeah, it was a symbolic murder, and so, you know, obviously I got a bit perturbed by all this. You know, I managed to get myself involved with a sort of psychopathic killer without even trying. You know, so it's a very kind of, you know, unusual situation. You know, as I said before, you know, I wanted to be an entrepreneur, not the George Orwell of the 21st century. So obviously I'm a bit pissed off with, you know, the fact that I actually know all this stuff, and kind of it's marred my life. You know, I would have been a lot better not knowing any of it. You know, and carried on doing some other stuff. I think that would obviously have been a lot better.
Yeah, for sure.
So that's you know, it's a very unusual thing, you know. So this now we're talking about here, this symbolic murder, which has been, you know, eventually I did, you know, after I'd been a recluse, I started to recover a little bit. I'd actually been, you know, had depression and stuff like that. And that's quite relevant to some of the latest subliminal messages. I got sent, I was on depression tablets, and I had them delivered by somebody at the time, you know, because I wouldn't leave the house because of the abuse I'd be, you know, being put through and things like that. I wouldn't leave the house and things like that, you know. So we got these depression tablets delivered, and the man who's delivered those tablets is still being used today as a subliminal message. Yeah. So essentially, William and his crew, and his spy crew, you know, object to me having got post-traumatic stress disorder, and being on depression tablets and so They object to that. That's not the done thing, not allowed or whatever, and they're sort of sending subliminal messages about it. Yeah, this is what they're doing. They're using the pharmacy guy or the delivery guy as a subliminal message on a regular basis. What they have been doing. And there's a couple of others as well, similar ones. There's about 200 different types of subliminal messages that have been sent over the last 5-6 years. Yeah, and I've produced a docx file on how they do this. Yeah, sort of synopsis of how they actually do the subliminal messaging in a way that's not detectable to other people, so that only the victim knows that it's being done to them. Yeah, and this is sort of similar to the zersetsung cases, similar kind of thing. It is documented in those cases. Yeah, William is using pretty much exact zersetsung methodology to abuse his victims. Yeah, he is analysing the victim's past events and circumstances, and then he's using the weaponized algorithm technology to trigger events that subliminally disturb or psychologically abuse the victim. Yeah, referencing the victim's own past events and circumstances. Yeah, because only the victim knows about it, only the victim can see it. It is not detectable by other people.
And again, just a quick interjection, Paul. I'm not going to go into any details about it, but again, when I was sectioned and I was in solitary confinement, people were coming to I was in a solitary confinement cell. I was only allowed out once a day for a shower under 3 officer guards. They were all petrified of me. And people were coming to the door and asking me questions and talking about things that they had no business knowing. They had no way of knowing. And at first, I was like, what the dickens and deuce is what is going on? And I just, I had to roll with the scenario. But Paul, I've experienced it firsthand, brother. So, you've at least got one person here who knows what you're talking about.
Any victim who's watched or manipulated by these people, right, has their life completely dissected in the minutest detail. They will know your history going back 25, 30 years.
I don't know how it works, Paul, but it literally blew my mind at the time. I was like, what the hell?
They know your history going back 25, 30 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. And not necessarily documents or paperwork or electronic, just events in your day. Yeah. That's just stuff you've done, right? 25 years ago. They have logged it. Yeah. So it's a very unusual, high-tech kind of logging that they've got some way of logging and registering these events, as a way of sort of recording your activities and so on. Yeah. So that's, it is very extreme and intense victimization. So the subliminal messaging that they're doing, as I say, they're referencing only the victim's personal life events. And as I say, it's not rocket science how they're doing it. How they're doing it is very straightforward. The reason they managed to get the victim declared mad is very simple. They're only accessing the victim's own personal events, and they're referencing these in the subliminal stuff so that nobody else can tell, quite simply, because nobody else knows the victim's own past events. So that's not rocket science. That's how they're doing it, and that's how they get the victim wrongly diagnosed or declared obsessive, paranoid, mad, or whatever you want to call it. That is exactly how they're doing it. Yeah. So my take on that is they are committing illegal acts. They are deliberately getting the victim wrongly diagnosed with an illness when they're perfectly sane. They're being gaslighted. Yeah. And it's known that these people do gaslighting and do a lot of psychological abusive tactics and so on and so forth. And essentially, as I say, that is how they are getting the victims wrongly diagnosed. if I'd have known that when it first started 6 years ago, I wouldn't have bothered going to see, you know, a psychiatrist or anything like that. You know, and I said, oh, okay, I know what they're doing. We'll leave, you know, we'll try and do something else about it. But I didn't. I did get a little bit worried. I went to see him, and I got wrongly diagnosed, and that was obviously deliberately intentional. And this comes back to the finance income aspect of it as well. At the time I was driving, I was you know, not earning great deal of money. You know, literally nothing. You know, in today, you know, I mean, I'm astounded. I go online and I listen to these people saying, oh, I did a regular job for 100 grand a year for 5 years, and I got sick of that. And you know, I think most people in the UK don't get anywhere near that, do they? Yeah. So I don't know what planet some of these people are on.
This is it.
They're not on planet UK, that's for sure. Right?
What's the average salary in the UK? Like less than 25 grand, isn't it? Something like that.
Yeah, 20, whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know, I go on YouTube and I see all these gurus and these entrepreneurs and all the rest of it. Oh, I gave up a job of, you know, only 200 grand a year, etc. To go, you know, so to be an entrepreneur. Well, you know, in the UK, people work their entire lives for about a quarter of that. So, you know, so take me to that planet, you know. But anyway, that's different. We've got off subject here. We're talking about subliminal messaging and how they abuse the victims. You know, they're using the victims' past events to do it. And this is something, you know, I've got a case against the local Ardash about what was done to me, because I have got a 5-year caseload of various meetings over the 5-year or so period. And at all times, it shows clearly at all times that I've always told them exactly what's been done to me, who's doing it, why they're doing it, and how they're doing it. Yeah. And this is something they refuse to take on board. They still insist that, you know, schizophrenia and all the rest of it. And as I said before, I think it would be quite clear to anyone with half a brain that I have not got schizophrenia. Yeah. So we come back to this, as I say, I produce a synopsis of it, how they're doing it, and there is backing from the zersetsung case files, which shows clearly, you know, this is documented and was, you know, it's recorded as being done that way by those people. And this is the same mythology. They're using, you know, William and his crew, the spy network down there or wherever they are using the same techniques to gaslight and technologically abuse victims. But, you know, they've got a lot more advanced technology. As I say, they've got the ability to trigger a meeting with a victim in the street. Yeah, so they can predict. I mean, I've had regularly, many times, predicted when I go to a local shop, and I have had deliberately engineered meetings on the way there. Yeah, they've triggered meetings with certain local people with relevance to my situation, past events, circumstances, etc., etc. Yeah, they've used those as a subliminal message. Yeah, and I've recognised these as this is what they are doing. Yeah, only certain they've used certain people, certain events, certain ways of doing it. You know, intimidation methods, and so on and so forth. You know, so it's very unusual kind of abuse. You can't tell anybody. I've actually spoke to 3 of the people involved. Yeah, I've had 3. There's roughly 3 people that I know to have been using weaponized algorithm surveillance abuse attacks. Yeah, I've spoken to them all, and I said to there is one which is a fearsome looking guy called Mick, and they've used him for the last five years. Originally, it was when it first started, it was a conversational abuse as well. He said. I said, oh, what do you do? And so on. And he says, oh, I clean the streets. And this is a common theme. I've noted all this, that William and his crew think I'm a waste of space, or, you know, no good to society, or useless, rubbish, garbage, and all sorts of other stuff. Yeah. They've conveniently forgot that I worked for free for 10 years, made major contributions to London society by helping them in major gangster projects to clear up criminals. That doesn't count, etc., etc. Yeah. As far as these people are concerned, I'm a waste, no good, garbage, etc., etc. And so Mick has been used numerous times, and I have noted quite a few times when it's been used. Now, it's documented again in the zersetsung case files, right? That this is the way they do it. They literally manipulate these events or triggers or whatever. Yeah, I'm not saying that at that time they had this capable technology, but it is a similar. The similarity is the same. Yeah, they use natural, normal events. So, like literally just meeting somebody in the street or whatever, which to everybody else appears completely natural. But because they've accessed the victim's past circumstances, events, and so on, and they're using it in an analogy or a metaphor, it has relevance to the victim, and that is deliberate. It is not coincidental. It is not natural. It is not normal. Yeah, it has been deliberately triggered and is a violation of the victim's human rights. Yeah. Victims should not have to walk around and have some psychopath 1,000 miles away deciding who they meet in the street. Yeah. So, as I say, Mick, I stopped Mick, right? I said to him one occasion, I said, has anything in particular made you leave your house at this particular time, you know, when you've just met me here? And he said, no, he just, you know, decided to come out, etc. Right? So Mick has no idea he's being used in a weaponized algorithm surveillance abuse attack. Yeah. So it's pretty extraordinary stuff. They can use third-party participants without that party knowing about it. Yeah. They can trigger third parties to be involved in the manipulation of victims without that third party knowing they're involved. Yeah? And also, of course, the hologram voice projection, they're using that to also abuse or intimidate, abuse, manipulate, etc. the victim. Yeah? Again, the third party does not know that words have been put into their mouths to say to the victim. So we've got some pretty extraordinary, capable technology here. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're not talking about schizophrenia. We're not talking about, you know, obsession, paranoia, or any of the other mumbo jumbo that psychologists and psychiatrists come out with. We're talking about something very unusual. We're talking about 21st century surveillance abuse, and we're talking about weaponized algorithm surveillance technology with very capable, very huge capabilities. The ability to manipulate third parties in a victim's day and life in some extraordinary ways. So you've got space age technology here. And this is where I get the Agenda 21 stuff. This is obviously being developed over many, many decades, and it's got a specific purpose. Yeah. The purpose of it is to manipulate victims however the hell they like. Yeah. So essentially, we are talking. You know, you're talking about. This is why I talk about Agenda 21 as war crime, right? This is what you've got, right? A very unusual kind of war, a very unusual kind of abuse, and a very unusual kind of victimization. Yeah? So that's what, as I say, one occasion. That's Mick. I have had a couple of others, and again, I stopped the pharmacy guy, yeah, because I know he's been used in the attacks, yeah. I stopped him. I said, you know, you sort of, routinely appear every time I walk to the shop. Did you know that? Right? He says, no, I didn't, I said, well, what do you think are the odds of you, routinely appearing every damn time I walk to the shop? And he says, well, it shouldn't be that much, should it? Yeah, I said, no, you're right, aren't you? Right. And that's another one, I spoke to him, and I said, you've just been used, or you are regularly used in a weaponized algorithm surveillance abuse attack. Yeah. So that's, as I say, I've stopped I think there's about 3 I've spoke to, and none of them know they're being used in these attacks. Yeah, none of them. So you've got a very unusual kind of level of control over victims here, haven't you? Yeah.
Massively.
Yeah, you've got the ability of these people, Eves Carlo William and his, network, etc., to control third parties, to manipulate victims into situ or circumstances without their knowledge, by using other third parties to, just pass on comments or manipulate into place. And this is what some of this stuff are what's being done during that the spy gangster project. They all seem to communicate completely tacitly. There were huge numbers of these triggers, triggers amongst a lot of the people that was involved in it and so on. It was like a high-tech controlled operation. This wasn't MI5. Yeah. So this is what I'm talking about here is what's being done to me is a continuation of what was done in the first 10 years. He's just literally carried on. Essentially, I've been put into the Truman Show movie. Yeah. These people have got some serious objection to me having any kind of life or doing whatever I want to do. And have heavily compromised me for the last 21 years. Yeah. So back to the subliminal stuff. You're talking about in the last 6 years. What happened was in 2012, I got a phone call from Charles Gabriel, who I've mentioned before, financier from Mayfair, who moved to Surrey in 2005, and he was a regular participant in the manipulation, gang stalking during the spy project, etc. And he phoned me in 2012, completely out of the blue, and he said it was just checking who I was on his phone. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's what he said at the time, And I was still, I'd just sort of stopped being a recluse at that time. I've been a recluse for about 4.5 years because of, earth-shattering stuff that was being done to me, And he just said that, and that was it, But that was essentially an intimidation or threatening ploy or whatever, whatever you want to call it, intimidation move. He just phoned up to remind me that they were still there, still watching, still, etc., etc. So with the phone records will show if he's, if that number shows up, we'll show that phone call in 2012. But then in 2013, Mr. Eves Carlo William drove past the top of the road here in Doncaster. Now, Eves Carlo William used to live in Mayfair and Brussels. I don't know if he's still there or where he's gone, whatever, but that's where he was. There is pretty much no reason for him to ever be in Doncaster. Yeah. However, he did on one occasion, one day, when I left the house, again, same as are most of the subliminal messages, when I leave the house, yeah, they predicted that, and often these subliminal messages happen shortly afterwards. And that was one of them. I got to the top of the road, and East Carlo William drove past the top of the road for 10 seconds in his 4x4 car.
Do you recognise the vehicle then, Paul? If you're not a doppelganger, you knew the vehicle, you knew him.
No, I recognise him.
Yeah, cool.
Not the vehicle. The vehicle was, unknown to me, but it was a 4x4. I recognise him directly being in the vehicle. Yeah. I recognised him in the vehicle.
Right, yeah.
He literally, again, triggered event, pretty much the same as all the others. Just, literally, now if you analyse what's going on here, they've literally predicted when I'm going to leave the house, yeah? And then he's arrived at the top of the road, 30 seconds or a minute later, yeah, in a perfectly timed drive past, yeah. Now look at the level of planning, technology and capabilities overall of doing that, yeah. And look at the level of fanaticism, right? The man has drove 165 miles to participate in his own triggered events. He's drove past the top of the road in order to intimidate, psychologically abuse, etc. And it is perfectly planned, perfectly timed, should I say? Yeah. Leaving the house has been predicted. Yeah. The timing of it, when I got to the top of the road, which is about 100 yards, 200 yards away, he has literally drove past right at the top of the road for 10 seconds. Look at the level of planning, the technological capabilities and everything else involved.
Did he wave, Paul? Did he wave or make eye contact?
No.
Didn't even acknowledge you, did he?
Pretty surprised, this was in 2013, and it was the start of largely the last 6 years of abuse that I've put up with. It was actually shortly after that all the motorway stuff started. Yeah. Right. Not long after that, all the motorway stuff started. So it was, a kind of maybe a notification or some kind of intimidation stroke notification that I was going to be continually further abused, etc., etc. So as I say, you're looking at the level of capability, the technology they're using to do this. Yeah. I mean, examine that situation, examine it, and work out, how are they getting, how are they planning, right, for him to get to the top of that road by the time I left the house and got there, yeah, and also predicted when it's going to happen, yeah. This is, the level of capability of the technology. So you have to look also at the, this brings us to the fanaticism, right? How fanatical are these people, right? To actually even conceive and implement technology that is capable of doing that. What is the reason for it? Yeah. Why do they want to do it, right? Why would they even bother, etc.? Do you understand? I mean, you're talking about a level of fanaticism and desire for control.
That's the control, is the word I was about to say. It's the level of control above and beyond anything you could even conceive.
This is what I'm trying to say to people. What's being done to me has got a lot of relevance to anybody else in the UK, right? They haven't installed all this technology just for me, or Brian Harvey or whatever. Yeah, this is being used on anybody. Yeah, and the overall concept of control of the population and subjugation of the population, etc., into a kind of slavery, yeah, it seems to be the overall, theme. There's no there's no freedom. There's no, you are a sort of a name and a number.
Standard.
A revenue producing machine, and if you don't produce revenue, you are going in the toilet.
Standard, yeah.
So this is, the connections are there. As I say, just that example there, right? It's documented in the case files, right? I did talk about this event. It was written off as fantasy or, garbage and all the rest of it, right? And I know that this was done, right? This is, I witnessed it. There's, it's no wonder, right? Given the revelation, what I'm revealing is being done with this technology, and some of the murders have done, and the people involved, and so on and so forth. It's no wonder they've tried to discredit my testimony, right? Because what these people are doing is war crime level criminal. Their activities are seriously criminal, and you have essentially got a seriously criminal UK government, because they've done all this stuff without anybody knowing, right? And it's not actually supposed to be like that, is it?
It isn't. No.
Yeah. So that's one example, but I mean, there's a lot more. I mean, I'm talking about now about 200 different types of subliminal messages. They are repeated, reused on a regular basis. They're kind of similar kind of messages, similar, and they all have a similar theme. I've got a folder full of them. I've also got a folder full of web ones and LinkedIn ones and a few others kind of ones that have been sent. I've had leaflets through the door with a leaflet going with it, GPS tracked, right? And various other stuff, right? These are subliminal messages. This is not somebody who's obsessive, or somebody who's paranoid, or somebody who's schizophrenic, or somebody who's mentally ill. This is somebody who is perfectly sane, but recognizes quite exactly what these people are doing. Yeah. And that's the situation I'm in. This is still going on. It's been going on for 6 years. Shortly after William's drive past the top of the road, again, as I say, it's documented in the case files. Shortly after that, the van stuff started, the motorway stuff, sorry. And I got an estimated 10,000 attacks in 20 months. Yeah. This is, I was doing at the time, I was just doing a driving job and so on. It's all I could get. I mean, I was about, at that time, I was about 57, I think, or something like that. Yeah. I've been doing web tech for quite a while, but still not good enough. It's not good enough to, at that time, to get, job or whatever. It is very, very hard to get. You could have you can have 3 degrees when you're 57 years old and not get a job. You understand? It's not that easy.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was doing that, and I was doing this. Literally, it was mind-blowingly boring, and it was just driving up and down the motorway, delivering stuff and things like that. And what happened was, every single day, 5 days a week, going up and down that motorway, I would get triggered van and truck messages, yeah, and they're doing exactly what I've described, how I described it in the synopsis. They were sending, using an analogy as a the logo or livery as an analogy or metaphor for subliminal message. They were referencing my past events, circumstances, etc., and using those to abuse, generally send abuse on the side of bands. Simple as that was it. That's exactly what they're doing.
So on the thread then, Paul, of and again, it'll be too much for a lot of people to even take on board, but on the thread of third parties being able to be manipulated with holographic voice technology, which I'm fully on board with, fully understand it, fully kind of appreciate it. With regards to the livery on the side of the vans and stuff, are we talking about the possibility of whatever you are seeing being visually manipulated to your eyes? So perhaps not necessarily what other people might be seeing if they were to look at the van, or do you get what I'm getting at?
It is one, right?
Okay.
I made a comment, right? I called this network, the spy network, about 5.5, 6 years ago. I called it, during one of the communications, I was still being communicated with and so on, you know, recognized I was being communicated with. I called it a federation, yeah? Just off the top of my head, you know, I called it a federation. You know, it's like a kind of federation of spies or whatever, you know. I called it that. Yeah. And subsequently, right, I ended up getting regular after that, subliminal ban messages saying FedEx. That's the FedEx ban. Yeah. Now, this is taking something that I've said or, you know, alluded to or whatever, and they have recycled that, they rehashed it, and they are using it in an abusive or derisive message. FedEx, essentially, I called the spy network a federation. Yeah. At the same time, I was also manipulated. Pretty much a day or two after I did that, after I said that, was manipulated into a housing association in Doncaster, which was called a federation, a housing federation, yeah, and things like that. And these were deliberately manipulated events. And essentially, not long after that, I started getting the FedEx, and now these are regularly used now because I called this, you know, Williams network of a federation. I get FedEx messages, i.e. ex-spy or whatever. Yeah, I'm getting sort of ridiculed that, you know, I got involved with them, you know, got taken for a ride, etc. Bought a spy for free and so on and so forth. They're using that. They will use anything to do this to people. Yeah? You're talking here about an extreme level of control, a massive level of control of the victim, manipulative control. You know, after analysing the victim's behavioural patterns, what the victim says, and all sorts of other stuff. You know, they will literally reuse anything that the victim does, says, or, you know, or thinks probably, yeah, to manipulate them or abuse them. So you've got massive abuse here, and Boris Johnson recently came out with that video on YouTube. I put it on the group page, and he's literally telling people what they're doing. Yeah, nobody notices, right? Yeah, Johnson is literally telling people what they're doing with the technology. Yeah, if you watch that video, it's on the group page, right? Watch that. He's telling people what they're doing. Yeah, and this is again a common theme. You will get politicians telling people what they're actually doing, but sort of saying it cryptically so that people don't really understand. Yeah, you know, classic doublespeak or whatever you want to call it. You know.
Yeah. They call it the ritual mocking, don't they? That's what they call it, the ritual mocking.
So you've got, you know, what I'm saying is that the level of capability of the technology the UK is using today is absolutely extraordinary, right? And you are talking about, if you are a victim of it, you are talking about a war crime issue, because they are not doing it for you to get anywhere in life, right? They are doing it to destroy your life, right? It's as simple as that. You have got a war crime issue against your government, right? Who are committing war crimes on their own people. And this is, you know, this is a serious problem. I've had my life ruined by being involved with these people. You know, it's still going on today. I've been manipulated into a zero income situation. I was wrongly diagnosed with schizophrenia, which I haven't got. I was stopped from driving deliberately because there was thought I was saving some of the money, yeah, and things like that. It is a takedown program. They are making sure the victim can't earn any money, can't save any money, can't keep any money, etc. It is heavily finance and asset based targeting. Yeah, the idea is to manipulate the victim into a fruitless life. Yeah, so they sort of fade out of society, die early, and they don't have to pay their pensions. Yeah, you're talking about a kind of population control or culling or whatever in a very unusual way.
Yeah.
So you have got, you know, other people have talked about it. Orwell, Brave New World, Truman Show, all this kind of stuff. That's exactly what you've got, right?
Yeah.
You've got a government that is assessing you on your revenue, you know, generating capabilities, what assets you've got, what income you've got, etc., etc. It's a kind of hierarchy, you know. When you've been robbed of 21 years of your life and involved in this stuff for, you know, for such a long time, then you're going to get a bit sort of cheesed off that they now consider you a liability and a no good to society. Yeah. You know, I personally never, you know, anticipated getting into any kind of this kind of situation. You know, I would never.
Of course, we would.
Yeah, I would never have worked for Spies for free for 10 years if I'd have known I wasn't going to get paid. You know, it's not rocket science, is it?
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got a very unusual situation. What I'm saying they're doing with the technology, I'm 110% on the button, right? They are doing this stuff with this technology. And whether outlandish you think it is, or anybody thinks it is, I can assure you they are doing this with this technology. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I maintain, right, I'm 110% on the button about all this stuff, going right back 30 years. You know, I've been involved with these people 21 years. I met first Spy in 93. It's, you know, it's very unusual stuff. You know, you're talking about a kind of, you know, in reality, a sort of high-level elitist secret network that is really running your life, right? And they have obviously spent billions or whatever on this technology to do this stuff to victims. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, this is you are looking at a war crimes issue. You are looking at people trying to kill you. Yeah. Or you know, more to the point, they are manipulating you into nothing deliberately. Yeah, so it is, you know, you've got serious problems if you are a victim of this stuff. Yeah.
And this is it, and you know, I'm very grateful for you coming and sharing your time with myself, Paul, and for getting this information out there, because it's important. And you know, think of it what you will. For, you know, there will be people who listen to this and will be fully on board and go, yeah, you know, I've done my own research, and you know, a lot of this is resonating, and there'll be those for whom it doesn't, but it will all come out.
The problem about research, there's a big problem with research. You know, anybody who believes a sort of government-approved document needs their head examining, right? Anybody, you know, from what my knowledge of all this, anybody who believes that the government is anything other than a malevolent force needs their head examining.
Well, that's it. Anyone who thinks governments are there to help us just needs to do a little bit of digging into history and see what government's all about.
So you've got a situation where you know, myself, others, Brian Harvey, etc., are in a situation where the government is trying to kill them.
Yeah.
Right? Essentially, you know.
That's the long and short of it, right?
Yeah. You need a lawyer to try and get the evidence of it and bring a case against the people involved. I mean, in my case, I know exactly who's involved.
Yeah.
You know, and I know a lot about them, which is the reason I'm being victimised. It's still going on. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is a serious problem. It's been, you know, there are precedents, you know, historical precedents. The zersetsung cases are, you know, classic one where the victims brought a war crimes case against those people. You know, the state Stasi police or whatever. Yeah. Now, in my case, I have got a lot of evidence, or can get a lot of evidence of what's been done to me over the last, you know, 21 years. So, you know, it could be a different story. What I need is a lawyer for international criminal court, because, you know, I've been victimised in a very, very unusual way. You know, it is so unusual. You know, very unusual. Kind of life destruction thing. You know, all aspects of the victim's life is dismantled. Heavy psychological abuse. Manipulations of, I mean, over the last 3 years, I've got witnesses over the last couple of years where I've been attempting to work, but being victimised whilst there. Yeah, so I had to stop and stuff like that. You know, it is literal, constant, daily manipulation of the victim. The victim is literally given no chance. Yeah. So it's a very serious problem. You know, you're looking at sort of being murdered while you're still alive. Yeah, the ruining your potential, ambitions, etc., and they're doing it over many decades. Yeah. So you've got a very serious situation here. You know.
Well, there's no doubt about that, Paul, and you know, this is a lot of information here for people to get to grips with for a start, and I think we're coming up to the 3-hour mark now, so I think it's probably better to round this one up for now.
Yeah.
Like I said, we will put this information out there. We will be reaching out to people to try and see if we can find someone on that international kind of level who is able to, or at least willing to kind of entertain this kind of stuff, and hopefully we can revisit this in the very near future, brother. And
there's a lot more, you know, as I say.
Yeah, of course, I understand that. Yeah,
I've put into, you know, there's a lot of 5G groups, and I've you know, messaged some of those and said, look, 5G is the tip of the iceberg.
Yes.
There's a lot more than 5G, right? And I'm watching it being done every day. There's a hell of a lot more. So you've got, and the government not telling you, you know, that you've got serious problems. You have got you've got a criminal government, right? There's no two ways about it. You have got a criminal government, yeah. So, you know, people need to kind of wake up a bit. This is, you know, going on. Victims are being murdered, victimized, wiped out, have life compromised on major levels, all sorts of other stuff. You know, it is pretty bad.
Oh, it's serious business. I mean, no mistake. It's serious business. And yeah, again, Paul, I am very, very grateful indeed, brother, for you taking the time. Was there anything that you wanted to kind of round off to just for this little sitting of ours?
No, for now, I mean, there's a lot more.
Of course, and we will revisit for sure. We'll revisit.
You can't really possibly cover 21 years.
Of course.
Hours, you know, there's
of course. I think we've done a good job, to be fair. You've done a good job of kind of getting it into a kind of a little bite-sized portion to get us started. And as I said, we will.
There's a staggering amount of stuff that you know, that's being done to me, and I know is being done to other people as well.
Of course.
But it's not just the surveillance abuse. What the main problem here is the fanaticism and the symbolism and the level of and the sort of desire to subjugate and control and sort of, you know, mute people, the muting people's lives. You know, it's, you know, they're trying to corral people into a certain way of living, the mundane 9 to 5, the mundane, you know, work till you drop, etc., etc.
Yeah.
Some of us want to be entrepreneurs.
That's
Don't do that. Yeah. And what they're doing is for some, you know, some victims are making sure that victims can't do that. You know, so it is an oppressive, very oppressive kind of thing to get involved with. So as I say, I'm looking to bring a legal case against Eve Carlo William for what he's done to me over 21 years, which is essentially desecrate my life with his presence.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, he's not going to agree. You know, he's sitting there with his, I don't know, 500 million fortune or whatever, and tyrannical way of operating and so on, and controlling the police and this, that, and the other. But I know, you know, what's being done. I know exactly what's being done to me over 21 years. You know, and I know what he's involved in. I know what his spy networks members are involved in, and it's very nasty stuff. So, you know, I'm looking for an international criminal court lawyer. As far as from my point of view, from what I know about all this stuff, essentially, I've got to figure out a way of removing myself from the jurisdiction of the UK government.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've been so heavily involved with them, you know, on this kind of thing. I know so much about them, the crimes going back decades, everything they're doing with the technology, the Stasi network, the infiltration into corporations and banks and you know, government entities like the BBC and you know, all sorts of councils, DVLA, you name it, it's all connected.
Oh yeah, all the way to the top.
You've got literally Orwell on steroids.
This is it.
So it's a level of control that it's not really acceptable, is it? You know,
No, not at all.
People didn't actually vote for that.
We do not consent, as I like to say.
Yeah. And why are we voting at all?
Yeah.
You know, so you know, I've got a massive list of charges: frauds, thefts, coercions, manipulations, intimidations, victimizations, death threats, recommendation to get life insurance, pensions, funeral plans. We haven't even really touched on all the subliminal stuff that this psycho has been doing to me. You know, it is literally a sci-fi nightmare that I've had to sit through for 21 years.
I know, brother. I know, and I feel you. I really do. And I think it's nice that we've been able to get this first bit of information out there, and I think it'll probably give you a bit of kind of thinking space now afterwards to kind of prepare for the next chat, and we can get a bit more information out there as well as a follow-up.
I have had messages, subliminal messages, documented. Some of those saying there that you'll be forgotten and all this. You know, I mean, this is, you know, the common thing in, you know, I watch on a lot of these entrepreneurs and all this, and you get all these people saying, "Oh, what will you be remembered for in life?" and this, that, and the other.
Yeah.
What we're talking about is creating multi-billion-pound businesses and this, that, and the other, and so on. You know, and this is still something I want to do. You know, so I haven't stopped. But unfortunately,
I respect that, brother. I respect that massively.
Unfortunately, I have been waylaid by a criminal psychopath for the last 21 years. You know, so until I get restitution for that,
yeah.
Then you know. But you have to take into account that what I've said about, for instance, the disregard for people's wealth, and in any case, I mean, you're looking at the number of people that have been murdered or killed or whatever, assassinated. They have a total disregard for people's wealth because, by and large, they're the richest people on the planet. You know, so it's very difficult. you know, but what do? You know, okay, so you're not remotely or ever will be as rich as them, but you've still got an opinion, and you have still got intellect, and you've still got intelligence to analyse what they are doing.
Exactly.
You know, what do? Shut up and carry on picking up banana skins? Or
we will not be silenced, brother. We will not be silenced
about it. You know, so
not while we still have the opportunity. Anyway, not while we've still got the voice. Not while we've still got the air in our lungs and the ability to put this information out there. And at the end of the day, we've still got that available to us right now. You know, and you look at China and the kind of censorship over there.
You know what? As I said, you just mentioned China. The social credit system and things like that.
That's the goal, isn't it? That's the goal for it. That's the goal for the rest of the planet.
In actual fact, you have got, in fact, a worse version of that in the UK. Yeah, you have got a worse version of that. Yeah,
because it's masquerading as freedom, isn't it? Even this illusion of freedom.
The UK is ahead of most people in this kind of thing, right? They're in front of China by a long way. They've had this. You know, I've watched this for 21 years, right? So it's just, you know, the China thing has just recently been reported. They've been doing this in the UK for well over 20 years. Yeah, they're well in front. Yeah, so you have got a worse situation, a worse kind of thing, a social credit thing, a kind of elitist dissemination of people's sort of status in society and so on and so forth. You know. They're deciding what certain person's status should be, and this and the other, and they are, if they don't like them, they are ruining their lives and things like that, you know. And this is what you've got in the UK. So it's why I personally, you know, politics is a complete waste of time. That's just the middle there, you know. You know, people need to wake up to what's the reality of why they're working for, you know, I don't know, 20 grand a year or whatever it is. The reality of that is the reason they're doing that is because that's how it's being set. That, you know, the value they're providing is being sucked up to you know, other people less deserving, and that, you know, that's essentially, you're talking about a regime which is not allowing people to properly, you know, sort of get the benefits of their own, you know, sort of work and so on. You know, it's an oppressive regime, and extremely corrupt.
This is it. But we're doing our bit, brother. We're doing our bit, and at the end of the day, like I said, I'm hopeful that we'll be able to get this information out there, reach out to some people, and we'll just get an ongoing narrative. And if you can send me
sent a message to the lawyer you sent.
Yes.
And I got a missed call yesterday. I don't know if it was him, but
might well have been. Yeah, that was.
He was talking about, you know, all this corruption and fighting property frauds and all sorts of other stuff. And my case got all that stuff, you know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Ticks
all the boxes, doesn't it? So fingers crossed there'll be some kind of some kind of connection there.
If you get restitution and get the victimisation stopped, I mean, essentially, I've still got a lot of skills and a lot of talent and this, that, and the other.
Yeah, exactly.
Being kind of suppressed by being victimised on a major level.
Yeah. Well, if you can send me all the links, brother, as we discussed, I shall put them in the description box. And it's been an absolute pleasure, Paul. Thank you very much again for sharing your time with us, brother. And we'll catch up again in the very near future.
You know, we'll come back another time and expand a bit on
indeed. Yeah, that'd be great.
Subliminal stuff and what they're doing with the technology people.
That would be brilliant. Yeah, we could do that.
The ideology behind it, which is evident, very evident from the subliminal message that they're sending, you know. They're literally sort of telling you their thought processes and their ideology, you know, what they think. They're ramming it down your throat, really.
Yeah, as they do with all of it.
It's a pretty oppressive situation to get into, isn't it?
Little bit, brother, a little bit. But at the end of the day, we do what we've got to do, and you
Yeah.
know, that's it. It's out there now, and we can, like I said, we'll revisit it and we'll get into a bit more depth, all the rest of it. And then in the meantime, fingers crossed, we get some, you know, some interest and some valuable connections.
You maybe send it to 5G groups and say there's a lot.
Yeah, all of them. Yeah.
There is weaponized algorithm, surveillance technology that can do all this stuff, and it is listed, or some of it is listed, you know, on the root page and so on.
Yeah.
It's not that anyone at any time can be a victim of this stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Well, thank you again, brother. Like I said, have yourself a wonderful evening, and we'll catch up in the very near future.
All right.
You're a gentleman. Thank you, Paul.